This presentation is entitled Self-Evaluation, Assessment Methods and Feedback by Isabel Campelos, Anne Casey and Maureen Lancaster. This presentation will review present assessment and feedback of the module Quality, Hygiene and Environmental Systems. We will critically evaluate the present scheme and propose and discuss possible amendments that could improve the assessment and feedback in this module. We'll then draw the conclusions on our evaluation. The module sits in the first year of studies of a part-time distance learning foundation degree and runs alongside another one called Raw Materials Control and Supplier Management. The current year group of 40 students are full-time employed in the food industry with an age span from 18 to 42 years old. The students are located countrywide, therefore access to campus can be limited due to work schedules. They often have high demands from work, which can impact on their time to study and prepare assessments. Some companies release the students for study days. However, this does not happen in other companies due to work pressures. These students have come to us from different educational routes, with most of the students returning to education after a period away. This can lead to a very diverse cohort with differing learning needs. Some require refreshing on skills, and there will be an adjustment period as they return to study. They will have years of industrial experience and relevant qualifications that can act as a basis, but few formal qualifications. Others have left school recently and they are more familiar with methods of study, but they lack work experience, which they are starting to get. To address this, we include extra guidance notes on the assignments on how to prepare them in terms of structure and contents. Based on feedback from students from previous years, this is deemed helpful and useful. We also use learning profiles to ensure lecturers are aware of each individual student's backgrounds, covering educational achievement, work-based roles, and learning styles, including possible areas that may need support. The current degree has two intakes, one in September, the other in January. By the time the students start this module, the September cohort has completed two other modules, scientific writing and communication in numeracy. The January cohort enters straight into the module and the above modules are picked up at a later date. This means that there is a discrepancy between the two cohorts in terms of studying skills, academic writing, appreciation of reading, use of Blackboard, and acting on feedback. Currently, both cohorts join together for study week on week 7 of this term, as can be seen on the slide. It should be noticed that this module runs alongside raw materials control and supplier management.
Currently, the assessment is divided into formative assessment throughout the module and summative assessment composed of 2 written assignments. The current assignment timings of the module are set in conjunction with the parallel module to avoid overlapping and overburdening of students on assessment. Formative assessment is ungraded and completed via Blackboard and in the face-to-face sessions during study week. Chappius and Chappius 2007 say that formative assessment can benefit both teacher and student as it enables a more detailed understanding of the student's abilities, which can be used to revisit and reteach. The student is also able to adjust and improve their own learning. One of the issues with discussion boards is that some students do not participate in all discussions, and therefore formative assessment can be limited. This can be mitigated through direct email to the student if this causes concern. This assessment allows a view on how the students are progressing through the distance learning programme and can highlight areas that may need further development prior to the summative assessments. Study week allows for face-to-face formative assessments during lectures and practical exercises and allows general student support issues to be identified. This module has 4 learning outcomes. There is a clear and coherent separation of the learning outcomes between the 2 assignments. On the first assignment, students are asked to describe a quality management system of their choice, supporting with real-world examples where possible. This gives them the freedom to choose a subject of their preference or that is more relevant for them. They are also expected to critically evaluate the positive and negative aspects of the systems they choose. They are encouraged to support their considerations with examples of records and procedures. On the second assessment, students need to demonstrate a comprehension on the importance of cleaning programs in a food production unit and apply their knowledge by creating a complete cleaning work instruction and analysing their choices. In this assignment, they are also asked to research about a topic of environmental legislation, again choosing a theme of their preference. These assignments are planned to give students freedom to choose a topic and explore it as far as their interest leads them. This approach has proven effective as the students engage well with the assignment, achieving good marks at first submission and provide positive feedback. Again, extra guidance notes are provided to help the 2 identified student profiles. So our current assessment uses written assignments, as this is seen to be the best fit for the topics covered. This table, though created almost 2 decades ago, makes an interesting comparison between different types of assessments. Our students have high demands in terms of their time, and the current chosen assessment method is the best because it gives them the flexibility to do the assignment in the most relevant format to the topic. Also, the assignment allows the students to relate knowledge gained through study in their own workplace contexts. Other types of assessment that are fixed in time and location, like group work, exams and projects, are possible on distance learning courses, but not every module can be assessed this way, otherwise it would overload the students. Distance learning teaching requires a strong component of distant learning assessments to accommodate our working students. These written assignments are valid as they enable our students to demonstrate and apply their knowledge whilst fully covering the module learning outcomes. This type of written assignment has shown in past years to enable students to achieve the expected results consistently, thus being reliable. This format assures validity and reliability as the student bases the content around their current work environment and identifies specific issues to that industry and impacts associated. The need to ensure that the assessment process is sound and fair is closely aligned to the need for validity and reliability highlighted above. In particular, this means ensuring that all students are treated equally and that they are all given equivalent opportunities to demonstrate their achievement as highlighted in QAA 2012. The assessment strategy for this module is closely aligned to the learning outcomes and therefore can be deemed to have high validity and reliability. The assignment allows integration of work context for our learners, so when linking to Bloom's taxonomy, it encourages movement towards the higher level learnings of analyse and evaluate. This is by the use of work content promoting short-term application and lifelong learning, BOUD 2000. One drawback is that both assessments are written assignments, and the students do not have a wide range of assessment methods available to them, and this could disadvantage some students with practical learning styles, which could bring in some reliability issues. With our students being in full-time employment within the food industry, the ability to relate ideas to previous knowledge and motivation to understand is stronger. This encourages deep learning rather than surface learning, as cited by Martin and Saudio 1976 and more recently by Hoffman 2014. Being a working student may contribute to motivation, but being a distance learning student, on the other hand, can lead to senses of isolation, and this can have a negative effect on motivation and should be monitored. The lack of interaction and discussion between students lessens the richness of the learning experience and omits a significant element of the constructivist approach to learning. Croft et al. 2011. They also state that constructivism is probably the principal pedagogical approach used in designing online courses. This approach is based on students actively constructing their own knowledge based on personal experience. These authors also state that students studying whilst in related employment should be motivated from the outset by recognising the rewards from their education, such as increased salary, more responsibility, better job prospects, and so forth, or the fear of penalty of having to repay the course fees. This is backed up by Biggs and Tang 2011, who state clear value of learning must be key at the start of a programme. These assignments apply the constructivism theory, providing deep learning through the analysis of work-based examples.
We follow current University of Lincoln guidelines on feedback, specifically marking and returning results within 15 working days turnaround time. Use both formative and summative feedback and link it to the marking criteria. Individual and personal feedback is archived on Turnitin and is thus easily accessible for future reference. The current methods of feedback utilised are predominantly written, electronically posted on Turnitin. This is driven by the constraints imposed by distance learning. An oral summary can be provided on Turnitin and is designed to personalise the feedback. Turnitin allows for plagiarism to be monitored easily. Students can self-assess the degree of similarity of their work prior to submission, therefore reducing the risk. Additionally, the use of work-based examples minimises potential plagiarism. In the current scheme, time of feedback is the week after the second assignment has just been set, and this provides little time to take on board the feedback and turn it into action. Electronic feedback has the benefits of the record of feedback is equally as important as the content, as cited by Sheffield Hallam 2010 paper and Paschett of 2010 refers that the students preferring the online environment for fast feedback by the instructor. Also, electronic feedback release is fair as all students receive it at the same time. This can be accessed at a time and a place that is suitable for them, not governed by timetable. Simpson of 2013 suggests that receiving feedback when emotionally ready, as well as a place of own choice, does encourage student engagement. Whilst not discounting other options, face-to-face is the most potent form of feedback as stated by Race of 2007 and by the NUS Charter of 2010. This is available in the study week or ad hoc at the request of students at a time suitable to them. Oral feedback is available by phone, subject to the availability to allow for discussion between tutor and students on specific concerns. Whilst oral feedback has its merits, it lacks face-to-face time, and as such, the ability to read body language to allow further feedback on emotional feelings. With our students, synchronised meetings require careful planning due to different work patterns and finding a suitable time where both tutor and student are able to discuss with no interruptions, having reading materials available, which can be challenging. With planning, this has worked well and both students and tutors gain from the call. In addition, feedback can be given on draft submissions of the first assessment to give students a very early benchmark of course expectations, RACE 2007 and NUS's Charter of 2010. They also advocate that face-to-face feedback is offered at least for the first piece of assessment each academic year. This is currently not scheduled as study week is prior to feedback deadline, as you can see from the chart. If feedback is scheduled during study week, this is not only permits a face-to-face opportunity, but also allows students to take account of feedback prior to submission of assessment 2. Feedback should be mark, grade and or comment as cited by Rees and Walker, and this again is our best practice. By using rubrics, it enables consistency and clear feedback. This can be made more robust by adopting of moderation or double marking. At present, we only moderate our marking. For formative assessment, we propose to include multiple choice tests, easy to complete and with immediate score. This feedback and self-evaluation by students These tests would not be considered important if not weighting applied, hence a 10% weighting. The marks would be linked to participation rather than the final score of the test. Also, recent research suggests that taking the tests can both enhance learning by strengthening the retention of information achieved during the test and also slow the rate of forgetting by Rocher and Pasha of 2010. So moving on to the proposed module amendments. Reflecting on the current practice, the module could be modified to allow improvement in student feedback and application to subsequent assessment by this restructure of the assignments to include the mark for continuous assessment of 10%, to promote discussion board participation and completion of the multiple choice test online, allowing greater formative assessments. As these contribute to the final grade for the module, the students would be encouraged to fully participate in these activities. The participation would be monitored and tracked by the tutor throughout the module. This continuous assessment also promotes positive student engagement through the use of discussion boards and sharing of learnings. This enhances student learning and dialogue. Ray states that it is often the more intimate context at small groups that the making sense side of learning really gets going. This is something we need to encourage with the distance learning students. This is supported by Maria and Lau of 2008, as cited by Miller, Irwin and Cox of 1998, who agree that these continuous assessment methods such as e-assessments delivered via Blackboard, the virtual learning environment, increase student engagement. Wilson et al. Of 2011 also found that using computer-administrated multiple-choice questions as formative assessment had a positive impact on student performance. Other recommendations include modifying the weighting of the assessments to be equal, as the weight has a bearing on the validity of the assessment process, the QAA 2016. This highlights the equal validity and weighting of the two assessments. Allows feedback to be gained prior to the second assessment, which is not possible in the current format, and also face-to-face feedback in Study Week as backed up by Sadler of 1989, that students benefit from timely face-to-face feedback. We need to be aware that this module runs in parallel with another one, as we mentioned earlier, and therefore any changes would need to be aligned with both modules. So proposed feedback on assessment. Freeman and Lewis, 1989, in discussing assessment regard feedback as providing an opportunity for dialogue, where dialogue only promotes a deeper understanding of the feedback given, but also promotes discourse on the subject area itself. This approach promotes student understanding of the feedback, as Chanak 2000 and Helander 2000 studies found. The process needs a flow of assessment, feedback, thus visibility of the gap will become apparent. It requires a two-way process between tutor and student. This leads well onto adaptive release of feedback, whereby students would reflect on written feedback before a grade is released. Technology feedback action found that the creation of an action plan was facilitated when students fully understood the adaptive release of grade system. Similarly, Sadler reasoned that students benefit from feedback which engages in action to bridge gaps in learning. Adaptive release would address the findings Chanak 2000 and Halen 2000, who found that students were not able to action the feedback to close the gap on their shortfall of learning. To allow progression in feedback, we would adopt a rubrics marking scheme. The HEA Enhanced Student Learning through Formative Feedback paper refers to Hounslow 97, discovered that the gap in the student and the tutor criteria for the assessment were not aligned. The utilisation of rubrics alongside this module would increase reliability. Burton also found this to be the case. To address this, a rubrics marking scheme would be shared to outline clear expectations and give visibility of the expected learning outcomes and goals of the assessment. If there are no alignment at the outset of the assessment, feedback will not lead to action on bridging the learning gap, Hounslow 1997. Rubrics also help students become more thoughtful judges of the quality of their own work. It also said to reduce the amount of time tutors spend evaluating student work With the increase of student numbers year on year, this scheme would balance the increased workload as well as help the students self-evaluate their own work effectively. Self-assessment is noted by the NUS Charter, Point 8, and supported by York 2000 and Boud of 1986 as a valuable tool in assessment and feedback as it encouraged self-assessment. This is an important skill for our students as they are distance learners and they have limited student interaction, so self-appraisal is key. This would be achieved by multiple choice tests as part of formative assessment and feedback. These multiple choice tests are a Blackboard tool where the students select the answer, and when they're finished the test they obtain the score immediately. This is a very user-friendly tool even for those who are less digitally inclined. With increased assessment and more frequent feedback, the students will be encouraged to build on their self-marking second assessment and add in predictive grades for comparison to final feedback from tutor. This could be further monitored through the generation of a reflective journal that will be completed throughout the course and moderated by the personal tutor. The reflective journal will be encouraged to use of reflective tool with regular short updates rather than long posts. This would enable it not to be a burden to the student, but as a valuable tool for reflection.
The current assessment and feedback already applies good practices, as we are mindful of our student needs and explore the strong connections to the work context in the benefit of the student's learning. For this same reason, we identify as opportunities for improvement a better timing between setting assignment dates, allowing students to make better use of feedback and promoting their own self-assessment by placing more emphasis on formative assessment. Also, making better use of technologies available to provide feedback both on drafts and on final work is an area that we need to improve. This will hopefully result in stronger student engagement throughout the module, promote the student self-assessment, as well as the student's building of knowledge, aiming to nourish a student as producer of their own learning. In this presentation, we explore the specific needs of our students, aiming to propose assessment and feedback methods that are most efficient to professional students with time pressure, among other characteristics. We analyzed the methods used and sought ways to improve them to allow our students to make the best use possible of the assessment of their work and feedback received. These recommendations should be reviewed starting in the next academic year. The process of construction of this presentation has been through a series of group meetings and individual work. First, we analyzed the assignment brief and current situation of assessment and feedback of the module. Then, individually, we have read through the subject that needed addressing, and through a series of meetings we composed our ideas, discussed and decided on the assessment and feedback to propose. Then we created the common structure for the presentation. Finally, individually, we constructed parts of the presentation. On a second stage, we considered the feedback from our tutor and included the changes considered relevant. The final result was then in group compiled and recorded. This is the end of this presentation. Thank you.